boo-hoo. The ethics committee can say, no, too bad, and she has no recourse for that. Meh. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, whenever you are. All right, today we've got something really nice here. We have a representative, Sheila Cherfilus-McCormick, has resigned. I believe this was April 22nd due to some ethics violations. Now, this representative was going to be in front of the ethics committee and has instead resigned. So this is actually going to be a video from CBS, not Fox News. That way you can go ahead and not have anybody say that, oh, you're just using Fox News to go ahead and get all your information. So let's go ahead and watch this.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Reiser. We have breaking news out of Washington. Democratic Florida Representative Sheila Cherfilus-McCormick says she is resigning from Congress. We're going to show you the post that she made on X, saying this minutes before a House Ethics Committee was about to take place to decide potential punishment for some accusations that I'm going to tell you about in a second. But let's go ahead and read the statement first. She says this was not a fair process. The Ethics Committee refused my new attorney's reasonable request for time to prepare my defense. By going forward with this process, while a criminal indictment is pending, the committee prevented me from defending myself. She calls this a witch hunt. She said, rather than play these political games, I choose to step away. And she said, but let me say this plainly, we should be very careful about the precedent we are setting in this country. We do not punish people before due process is complete.
All right, just taking a look at this real quick. She said this is not a fair process. So the DOJ was already investigating her, but the Ethics Committee is a completely different process. The Ethics Committee has to go through their own process completely outside of the DOJ. And that process is completely different from any sort of criminal or civil proceedings. We've seen that time and time again, as far as you've seen Donald Trump go through the processes. Of course, that's presidential, which is also different as well from the committees that are done with congressmen and senators. So that's also a different process. But the point is that these are different processes from criminal proceedings and even civil suits. So I'm not sure exactly what she's trying to say besides crying about it not being fair. That doesn't matter. She's alluding to, of course, the fact that she has her new attorney's reasonable request for time to prepare her defense. That's alluding to the DOJ's processes. The Ethics Committee has nothing to do with that. Sorry, boo-hoo. The Ethics Committee can say, no, too bad, and she has no recourse for that. Meh. That happens, quite frankly, all the time. By going forward with this process, while a criminal indictment is pending, the committee prevented me from defending myself. Again, meh. It's a completely different process. I will not stand by and pretend that this has been anything other than a witch hunt. Congratulations. It's the same thing that Trump was saying during his impeachments. Now you know how it feels. It's just hilarious that they boo-hoo, whine, and cry when the shoe is on the other foot. If you got to do it to the other side, don't whine when it's done to you. And the Ethics Committee, I believe, is bipartisan. So I don't know what you're going to complain about. It's a bipartisan effort.
Do not allow allegations alone to override the will of the people. That is a dangerous path, and one that should concern every American, regardless of party. Now, the House Ethics Committee was going to hold a public hearing today at 2 p.m. Eastern to determine whether any punishment was warranted for the Democrat 3 weeks after concluding she was guilty of more than 24 charges stemming from an alleged campaign finance scheme.
Okay, now, I'm going to interrupt again because remember, that's 24 charges, and that comes from her campaign finance schemes, okay? It gets even better.
Wait, there's more.
So in November, the DOJ charged her with stealing $5 million from FEMA funds for her campaign. She has pleaded not guilty to 15 counts laid out in the indictment. She denies any wrongdoing.
So everything stems from stealing $5 million from FEMA. And I believe that funneled into her campaign. And then she took the money from there.
But the investigation says that they found substantial evidence of conduct consistent with the allegations in the indictment. In addition to those alleged campaign finance violations, committee investigators accused Cherfilus-McCormick of spending funds on luxury goods, including jewelry from Tiffany & Co., a Tesla, designer clothing, high-end hotels, and a cruise. And we know that many
So jewelry, hotels, cruises, high-end clothing, a Tesla. And there's more than that. Those were just the 5 things that she decided to say. Now that's, of course, what the DOJ found. And among those things is the reason why the Ethics Committee decided to go ahead and hold that hearing. And that's the reason why she resigned. Because rather than face those charges and say, no, I'm not guilty of these things and go through the process, she was resigning. Well, she's not guilty of it and she's going to fight it for the DOJ. Why didn't she go through the ethics hearing and say, yeah, this isn't true. I haven't violated any ethics. Instead, she resigned. Kind of sounds like she's pretty guilty to me.
Lawmakers were waiting for the Ethics Committee to wrap up the matter before forcing a floor vote on her expulsion. So she was facing expulsion if she did not resign pending the outcome of today's hearing. That will no longer happen, and we will no longer hear that publicly as well. So
hey, this is future editing, Jared. I had a few more minutes in here where I had talked about a couple more things because the newscaster talked about a few more congressmen that were under some other allegations, but I decided to go ahead and cut it, which is why it makes an abrupt turn right after this. Just want to let you guys know.
But this is obviously a tenuous time right now on Capitol Hill. We know that a lot of the arguments here have been sort of over what the representative is mentioning here. Do you override what some consider is the will of the people, or do you let due process and the Ethics Committee, for example, or the body at large force an expulsion vote? And we are going to continue to follow this story. But Democratic Florida Congresswoman.
So the problem is that really due process is part of the Ethics Committee. So Congress has the power to create these committees in order to effectuate the whole of Congress. That's the purpose of the committees. The whole of Congress creates the committees to delegate powers of Congress so that the entirety of Congress isn't needed to do these little things. And so the Ethics Committee is a part of that. Ethics Committee holds the hearing for violations of ethics, and that's the whole purpose. So the Ethics Committee says, yes, we find you in violations of ethics, and therefore that's why they bring the vote in order for expulsion. That's the whole point. That is the due process for that, number one. Number two, the ethics violation is not a crime. That's what due process is actually for. Read the amendment that includes due process. The former Congresswoman and this, I don't want to call her a journalist, this news lady is stupid for saying those words, due process. They don't apply to this situation. So yeah, this is a really dumb situation she got herself into. She shouldn't have stolen money. Corruption, I can believe it. It's just really stupid. Don't steal. All right, well, that's all I've got to say about that for now. If you made it this far, I thank you so much. Please don't forget to like the video, subscribe, share the video. Thank you. Have a good day.